Okay, so first we need to talk about the two most important ways to get yourself unstuck, both of which are internal to Python. So I have open here Anaconda Navigator, and we suggest in this course that you use Jupyter Lab instead of another IDE. And I'll talk about some features with Jupyter Lab that make that true in just a second. But let's start by launching Jupyter Lab. So the first way to get yourself unstuck in Jupyter Lab is to read the errors that happen in Pandas. And so this is the notebook for the module this week, and I put an example in here of some code that generates an error. Now it's not important right now what this error is and why it's happening. We'll talk about this particular error next week, but the point is errors are designed to tell us exactly what's going on. It gives us way too much information. Because these errors give us too much information, lots of people who use Python develop a bad habit of ignoring the errors entirely. So take a look at what happens when I use these 3 lines of code to generate this error. There is a lot of code here that I can't wrap my head around. It's too jargony, and it goes on for a while. In fact, it's even worse in most situations because this will have a pink background and it's just really hard to look at. Here at the bottom is the only part that I can use. It says parser error tokenizing data. I expected 1 field in line 5 and I saw 168. Okay, even that is technical, but with experience, I can learn what this means. It means I tried to load a CSV file. It expected in the 5th row to see 1 column. Instead, on the 5th row, it got 168 columns. Okay, so that tells me what's going on, and now I can think about why would it have seen 168? What's going on here? Okay, the point is this is hard to look at. So there's a way to turn off this part. This is called the traceback. This is mostly useful for people who are trying to debug their own functions. In order to turn the traceback off, you can import the sys library and then specify this line of code, sys.tracebackLimit equals 0. What that does is it suppresses the traceback, and instead what you see is this, where the same error appears much closer to the top. So I recommend doing this in your code. If you want to bring the tracebacks back, you can say traceback limit equals none, and then it returns to how it was before. But doing this in your code makes the errors easier to look at. If the errors are easier to look at, they're easier to read and to understand. It is always worthwhile to try to understand what the errors are telling you. Okay, another reason why we recommend Jupyter Labs is because of this ability to have consoles and notebooks side by side. So if you open up a console, that allows you to type in individual lines of Python code right here in this command bar. But one thing that is really great, first let me come to the notebook and make sure everything here is loaded by restarting the kernel and running all the cells. Now, one thing that this notebook did is it imported a library called sys. Okay, now if I want to see the doc string, you can see up here, type question mark for help. I can put a question mark in front of any Python variable or function in order to see the internal help documentation of that function. The internal help documentation is called a doc string. So for example, if I wanted to see the internal documentation of the sys library, I have to first go to make sure that the console is selected, go to kernel, change kernel, and then down here choose the choose the module that I'm trying to work with. So in this case, it'd be module 1. Having done that, I can now type the help string for anything I've imported, including sys. Okay? The best thing of all is I can take the console and move it side by side with my notebook. Okay? So I've imported sys, and now I can call up the doc string for sys, or for anything that I've created here.